Hello everyone, welcome to my channel SW Metro official channel.
Kody Brown, the patriarch whose authority has been systematically eroded by the fleeing of 3 of his wives, attempts to reassert his dominion in the most toxic way imaginable. He doesn't offer help, he doesn't model patience, he doesn't engage in the complex, co-parenting dance that plural marriage ostensibly requires. Instead, he turns to Robyn, the wife perceived by the outside world and her sister wives as his favorite, the one who has always seemed to hold a unique sway over him, and with a cold, imperious glare, he issues a command that reverberates with decades of submerged conflict. Robyn, control your child. The word control is the atom bomb in this sentence, detonating any pretense of nurturing partnership and exposing the raw nerve of Kody's crumbling ideology. This is not the language of a father or a husband in an equal partnership, it is the language of a CEO frustrated with a disruptive employee, a general annoyed by a misbehaving subordinate. It implies that Solomon's emotional outburst is not a call for comfort but an act of insubordination, a problem of discipline rather than distress. In this single word, Kody reveals his fundamental view of his family structure. It is a hierarchy to be managed, not an ecosystem to be nurtured. The children, and by extension the wives who are tasked with their control, are assets that must perform to specification, and emotional volatility is a glitch in the system that must be promptly corrected by the responsible manager. This moment lays bare the ugly truth that for all his talk of a celestial kingdom and spiritual leadership, Kody's core desire is for order and obedience, traits that have become increasingly scarce as his wives have grown independent and his children have formed their own opinions. The shock of the scene is amplified exponentially by its target, Robyn. For years, the narrative woven by the show and often bitterly echoed by Christine, Janelle, and Mary, was that Robyn was the exception to every rule. She was the wife for whom Kody would break his own covenants, buying $1 million home with her while other wives struggled, seemingly prioritizing her children's needs and her emotional comfort above all others. She was the silent partner in his shifting loyalties, the beneficiary of his favoritism. To see him turn on her with such public, unvarnished contempt is a tectonic shift in the family's dynamic. It proves a terrifying axiom of life with a narcissist: you are only safe as long as you are perfectly fulfilling your role. For over a decade, Robyn's role was to be the agreeable, supportive, loyal wife who validated his choices and made him feel like the hero of his own story. But in this moment, with her child's crying highlighting the chaotic reality Kody is desperately trying to deny, she fails in her function. She becomes, like the others, an obstacle to his peace, a problem to be solved. The command is a brutal demotion, stripping her of her privileged status and reducing her to just another wife who can't keep her unit in line, revealing that her position was never one of true security but one of conditional utility. Furthermore, the public nature of the command, issued in front of the cameras and the other adults, including the already alienated Mary, is a calculated act of humiliation. It is designed to shame Robyn for her perceived failure as a mother and to publicly re-establish the chain of command. Kody, feeling emasculated and powerless as his family abandons him, seizes this opportunity to perform strength. By dominating the one wife he was always accused of being dominated by, he attempts to send a message to the entire family: I am still in charge here. His authority may be ignored in other homes, but in this house, he is the king. The scene is a performance of patriarchy in its death throes, a desperate, ugly display meant to conceal a profound and terrifying vulnerability. He cannot control Christine's departure, Janelle's defiance, or Mary's quiet despair, but by God, he can command a woman to silence her crying child. It is a pathetic and shocking misdirection, an attempt to project power in the one arena where he still believes he can wield it. The aftermath of the command is just as revealing as the command itself. Robyn's reaction, a mixture of shock, hurt, and immediate compliance, speaks volumes about the underlying dynamics of their relationship. There is no defiance, no healthy marital pushback asking for support instead of criticism. She is wounded, but she internalizes the command as a legitimate reflection of her failure. This moment validates, in the most painful way possible, the long-held suspicions of the other wives. It demonstrates that her relationship with Kody, while privileged, was also built on a foundation of needing to manage his emotions and maintain his favor, a precarious and exhausting form of emotional labor. She wasn't winning, she was just better at the game, and now the rules had suddenly changed. The scene is ultimately a tragic portrait of isolation. In the end, under the pressure of their collapsing world, the famed loyal wife and the patriarch are not a united team soothing their child. They are two isolated individuals, one desperately trying to assert a control he never truly had, and the other being rebuked for a reality she cannot change, both trapped in a gilded cage of their own making, with the innocent, screaming child caught in the middle of it all. This single, shocking moment is the microcosm of the entire Brown family saga, a cry for help met not with compassion, but with a demand for control, revealing a hollow patriarchy where love is conditional and loyalty is a one-way street ending in utter desolation. Kody Brown, the patriarch whose identity is so deeply entwined with his self-fashioned image of leadership and principle, issues a cold, unilateral command to his wife, Robyn, "You need to deal with that. You need to get your daughter." She's screaming. The object of his frustration is their young daughter, but the true target of his ire, the recipient of this shocking order, is unmistakably Robyn herself. This is not a father exasperatedly asking for help with a fussy child, it is a general issuing a directive to a subordinate, a performance of authority so stark it lays bare the rotting foundations of the entire family structure. The power of the scene lies in its devastating context. This is not the Kody of earlier seasons, who would have likely engaged in a goofy, if ineffective, attempt to distract or comfort a crying child, his actions often fueled by a desire to be the perceived hero. This is a Kody hollowed out by years of familial strife, his favoritism for Robyn and her children now an open secret that poisons every interaction. The other wives, Mary, Janelle, and Christine, have long since decoded the hierarchy, understanding that Robyn's home is the sanctum sanctorum, the place where Kody's patience and affection reside in abundance while they and their children are met with indifference and irritation. To see him now, in this very sanctuary, turn on the architect of his comfort is profoundly destabilizing. The command, "Control your screaming kid," is shocking precisely because it violates the unspoken covenant of their relationship, that Robyn and her children are the exception, the haven from the chaos he himself created elsewhere. In this moment, the mask slips completely, revealing that his conditional love knows no absolute favorites, only a rotating cast of disappointments who fail to meet his ever-shifting needs. Furthermore, the language Kody employs is chilling in its objectification and abdication of responsibility. "The child is not our daughter, she is your daughter." In a single possessive pronoun, he severs the parental bond and exiles Robyn and her child into a unit separate from himself. He is not a participant in solving the problem, he is an inconvenienced bystander issuing a complaint. This linguistic choice exposes the core of Kody's failing as a husband and father across all four families, a profound lack of co-responsibility. The children are ultimately the responsibility of their mothers. His role is to enjoy the benefits of fatherhood when it is convenient and to critique its execution when it is not. He positions himself not as a partner in the trenches of parenthood but as a critic in the stands, and his critique is a demand for silence, for the cessation of a normal childhood expression of distress because it disrupts his peace. It is a demand for control, not comfort, revealing a priority for order over emotional well-being. For Robyn, the moment must be a terrifying glimpse into an abyss she helped create. She has built her identity within the family as the obedient wife, the peacemaker, the one who follows the protocol and upholds Kody's principles, often to the detriment of her relationships with her sister wives. She has been the recipient of his exclusive loyalty, a privilege that came at the cost of her standing with the others. To now be on the receiving end of his cold, public disdain is a brutal form of poetic justice. The shock on her face is not just about a crying child, it is the shock of the favored courtier who suddenly finds herself in the dungeon. It is the realization that the system she benefited from and upheld is ultimately capricious and that her protection was contingent on a perfection that is impossible to maintain, especially with young children. The scene dismantles the myth of her special status, proving that in Kody's world, no one is truly safe from his judgment and scorn. Ultimately, this shocking scene serves as a perfect microcosm of why the Brown family crumbled. It is a masterclass in how not to lead a family, how not to be a partner, and how not to parent. Kody's order is the antithesis of supportive partnership. A united front would involve him saying, "What's wrong, sweetie? Let's see if we can help," or even a quiet, private word to Robyn, "She's really upset, do you need a hand?" Instead, he publicly demotes her, transforming her from a wife into a malfunctioning employee. This moment crystallizes the experiences of the other wives and children, the feeling of being a problem to be managed rather than a person to be loved. It confirms Christine's reasons for leaving, Janelle's quiet frustrations, and Mary's years of emotional neglect. If he can treat his prized wife, in her own home, with such cold contempt over a momentary annoyance, then every past complaint from the other families about his impatience and lack of empathy is validated 1,000 times over. The screaming child is merely the catalyst. The explosion is the result of years of built-up pressure from Kody's failure to provide unconditional love and support. In the end, the most shocking thing is not the command itself, but the stark, undeniable truth it reveals, that in the kingdom Kody built, the king protects no one but himself, and his rule is one of fear, not love.